is to begin. A thousand banners waving in the sky. Here comes our Lazio, the eagle starts to fly.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. Unfortunately, Lazio didn't finish the Europe League group phase as we hoped for with a victory, but lost at home against Frankfurt. Luckily, everything was set and done. Lazio was already qualified at second, while the German team was first. So it's one of those defeats that doesn't count. But Alistair McKenzie, do you think it's going to affect the performance of the players next Monday or in the coming weeks?
I hope not. They all count. You know, he said it's a defeat that doesn't count, but I think it's a real missed opportunity because, to have an opportunity like this where you've got a free shot at a match, it's a home game and you're playing against a decent level of opposition and the team that have won every single game in the Europa League so far. It was a real opportunity for Lazio tonight to finally get a win again. I mean, I was kind of surprised just before we came on to see that. I don't know why I was surprised because we've been doing a podcast after every game, but to see that now it's been 6 matches without a win. And I think any win would have been, a big boost, regardless of whether it's significant to qualification or not. I think it's just something that this team needs to remember how to do again, and it was kind of the same old story again tonight where the performance actually wasn't too bad, but once again, sloppy goals conceded, chances not taken, and there you go. It's another bad result.
Yeah, I start to feeling that this team, when had to play key matches, not key matches in the sense against big team, but we said this December was really important for Lazio because they had not impossible matches that should be winning to put a big gap against the other teams that are fighting for the Champions League spot, and suddenly Lazio starting drawing or losing matches. I feel the team is not able to perform and to win matches when they are really important, even against lower team. We remember last year at the end of the season, Lazio start losing matches against lower team, against Crotone, Benevento in the cup in past years, key matches that didn't go away. I think maybe there's a little bit the problem of winning important matches that could make a difference at the end of the season.
Well, I mean, every match is important once you look back on it at the end of the season, and the thing that set Lazio apart from the others at the start of this season was the fact that we were managing to get wins in those games and against the kind of lower to mid-table teams in this league, and it was only the games against the big teams that were proving problematic, whereas now it's everything and everyone, and the Retiro was supposed to be the answer to that and give the team a bit of time to reflect on what's going wrong, focus a lot more intently on these problems, on their own performances, on the opposition, and so on, and obviously came agonizingly close to sorting that out against Sampdoria on the weekend. And yeah, I don't think, given that it's a rotated team and like you say, it's a Europa League game that didn't count for much, that it's a complete disaster the Lazio didn't win this game tonight, but I do think it's a missed opportunity. But don't get me wrong, the biggest test and the biggest prize really is coming up next Monday against Atalanta, and that's a really, really tough game, but if Lazio can get a result in that one, I think it's going to help to get them back on track, because I think at this moment in time and with the form book the way it is, I think that's as hard a game as any you'll really get in Serie A at the moment.
Yeah, we said it before already that this match away against Atalanta would have been the tougher in December, and I think it's going to be like that, and it's concerning because seeing the other results of Lazio, then it could be scaring thinking about next Monday. But we have to say, Alistair, that the performance today wasn't bad at all. It wasn't amazing, otherwise Lazio would have won. But honestly, considering even how many starter rested tonight, I thought Lazio played pretty well. And again, it's not a deserved defeat tonight, because I thought Lazio, if you take off probably the first 30 minutes of the first half, Lazio generally played better than Eintracht-Frankfurt tonight.
Yeah, I mean, there were obviously a few experiments going on there. The most obvious one being Luis Alberto and Correa playing up front together as kind of two number 10s alongside each other without a recognised striker, and that was quite an interesting move, and potentially one that kind of signals Inzaghi's intention to use them alongside each other in the future. Maybe those two behind Immobile, we'll have to wait and see, but yeah, there was that. Obviously, we've seen Acerbi playing on the left-hand side of the defence again, like he did against Apollon. We've seen Lulic come on to play on the right side of midfield instead of the left. So yeah, there are a few different things going on in there that were different from what we're used to seeing. So Inzaghi, I think, got the balance right, because he managed to experiment with the team and try a few new things out, while also giving minutes to players who needed them and putting out a strong enough team to put in a good performance. So yeah, it really is a shame that we've ended up with a defeat, because I think if it hadn't been that, even if it had been a draw, we would have been able to pull a fair few positives from what we've seen. But the fact is, and the thing that annoys me the most, and probably a lot of our listeners as well, is just how easily we're conceding goals at the moment. And they're coming in so much easier than the comparison with how hard we seemingly have to work to score them. And now that's 10 games without a clean sheet. The last time we kept a clean sheet was against Parma, and that was back in October. I mean, that is a long, long run without, stopping the opposition from scoring. And for me, that's the main issue here, is no matter how well you play, you can't afford to have these moments of, and I think it was the same thing again today, I don't know if you'll agree, but it's lapses of concentration in defence, lapses of communication, and there you go, they score. Good teams will pounce on that.
Well, I did a video again this week, I hope our Patreon saw it, about the mistake that allowed Sampdoria to score at the last second of the match Sunday. I was thinking tonight was even a little bit of bad luck. The first goal is simply unbelievable. I mean, he put it where it's impossible for Proto to touch it, and the second goal is simply embarrassing. I don't remember by heart a goal where there is a handball and an offside in the same goal. This is simply embarrassing. The referee and the linesman, they were Turkish, and at the first match in UEFA, I think it's gonna be even the last one, because they have been terrible. Now, I don't want to say that they dictate the match, etc., but a double mistake like that is simply unacceptable, considering even that they stopped twice Correa for offside, and he wasn't even on the line with the player. So they have been awful. But I put this in the bad luck of the moment for Lazio, because as the Sky commentator was saying, it's funny to think that this goal in Serie A wouldn't be conceded because there is the VAR, and VAR would have noticed immediately the two mistakes of the referee. So honestly, Alistair, I thought, for example, Ramos played amazingly today. Then I go, for example, on Lazio Siamo Noi, and he gets a 5 out of 10. I'm shocked. Did I see another match? Do you agree with me, or you're more pending on La Lazio Siamo Noi?
Well, I saw both. I saw your tweet, and then I saw their player ratings, and then I was suddenly cast into doubt. Who do I trust more here? Obviously, I have to lean towards you, or else you get angry. No, well, to be honest, I know this sounds like sitting on the fence, but I'm somewhere between the two. I don't think he had a brilliant game. I think he made some errors in this match. Um, he likes to have the ball at his feet, and I think that's what you need from the guy who plays in the centre of the midfield three, but sometimes he takes a bit too long, and I think you have to be very decisive in that role when you've got the ball at your feet. You need to know where the options are, where the passes are, and Acerbi's very good at that when he plays in that position because he knows where the space is, and he has a kind of safety option where if he is pressed, he knows where he can turn to, and he knows where he can play it back to. Whereas Felipe tonight, on a couple of occasions, got caught out in possession, and that's a very, very dangerous position to get caught on the ball, obviously. So I think that side of things, he could perhaps benefit from a bit longer playing in that role, so he knows how to, well, I suppose, how to best judge those situations. And then the second goal, also, I know you've mentioned that there were some bad decisions going on with the handball, the offside and so on. But I also thought he was at fault for that because his positioning wasn't very good. He got caught out for that goal, in my opinion. But I wouldn't be so harsh as to give him 5 out of 10. I think for me, he put in a decent performance, but it was far from a perfect one. So for me, I suppose more than anything, it just seemed like somebody who has a lot of potential to do very well in that role, as we know, but he just needs more time playing there.
But he didn't have a chance in the Serie A, and that's another question mark for me that I don't understand. Especially because it's not that he has Nesta in front and say, okay, it's Nesta, you don't play. It's Wallace, who's playing well, to be honest with you. But today even Bastos didn't play that bad, and he's hardly playing. So I don't know. I'm a little bit shocked about Inzaghi's decision. And for example, Alistair, we've been talking a lot about Cáceres. Today, Cáceres was maybe the worst player on the pitch. I thought.
Out.
Say again?
I think he wants out. I think he's done. I think January we're saying goodbye to Cáceres. That's my opinion. I don't think he's interested anymore.
I don't know. I mean, playing there, Lazio was pretty much attacking only on the other side because he wasn't doing nothing. And you expect at least you have Cáceres there, then the defense is covered on that side. No, not at all. At a certain point, I watched the bench and said, hey, there's Basta. Come on, put it in. Can't be worse than that.
Yeah, well, this is it. I think it was quite telling and quite interesting to see Lulic being put on in that role because obviously we have 3 players who are playing in that position and none of them are performing particularly well. Patrick, after the Samp game, has become a bit of a scapegoat and become a bit of a target for criticism from fans. Marisic just hasn't quite been at the same level as last season. I think he's still definitely the best option there, but he's just not been at that level and he's had injury problems as well. And yeah, Cáceres, whenever he's played there, hasn't. Yeah, I don't know. He's been a bit disappointing as well. So if we could find a way of Lulic putting in good performances on the right-hand side. I mean, he is right-footed after all, so obviously he's made a career on the left-hand side, but he is naturally right-footed, so it doesn't seem to be a reason why he couldn't do well in that position. And then suddenly we've got Lukaku and Dermisi who can compete on the left-hand side, and those are 2 options that are both quite intriguing, and we haven't seen that much of them tonight, and I mean this season. But yeah, Dermisi, I think, was another one I would have liked to see a little bit more from tonight. He does like to push up, but I think, I don't know, he seems to me to be a player who could be a bit more explosive than he has been.
I think, Alistair, he was too much in a rush. He's always a step further. In a lot of chances, especially in the first half, I thought in the second, maybe because he's not playing, in the second he find a little bit better the timing. He was too often too far, too close to the box, instead of being a step back and wait for the ball and then rush to the box. Yeah, I think he was a little bit frenetic, but you can see that he's someone that have the ability to change the match, to change the pace of Lazio and put on to make the other team struggle because he's so fast. And adding him to Correa, I think Lazio can be really dangerous. So he needs to relax a little bit and wait a little bit the perfect time that he didn't have in the first half. But I think he's still intriguing. He's really interesting, and he could be really a good player in the next part of the season.
Is that something you can see Inzaghi looking to now, though, is switching Lulic to the right and going with Lukaku or Demisi on the left, like as a first choice option?
Well, I think that the first option would be Marusic. Now, when he was able to play, he didn't play that bad. The problem is he's often injured. Again, he's missing matches because he's not fully fit. And Inzaghi has to be very careful when to play him. So I think Marusic would be the first option. But one of the positive thing about Lulic that probably if you give him the gloves, he can play in goal too. So I think he can definitely play on the right side. So that could be another option for Inzaghi. Especially, Casares has been really bad, and I'm surprised. I didn't expect him to see him performing that bad. So as you were saying, I think in January he will leave if Lazio is able to find another team. I don't know if they're going to have the money to buy a replacement, or otherwise try with Lulic like that. And hopefully, with the recovery of Lukaku, Lazio have an additional player there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the kind of early, well, not that early, but the kind of murmurings we're starting to hear about the January market are mostly connections to right-sided players. So hopefully that is, obviously, it's with Lazio, it's always impossible to really get a proper gauge of how accurate or not these stories are. But if they're talking about players who play in that position, then it is a suggestion that that's what they're looking at, I suppose. So, yeah, I think given that Caceres, he's been a bit of a disappointment generally since he came into the club. We expected a bit more from him this season, especially after he had a pretty good World Cup with Uruguay, but it's not really happened for him. And if he went out and we managed to get somebody else in who would be another option on that right-hand side, I think everyone's a winner, really. So, yeah, we'll wait and see. That would be some nice January business. I don't think we have a particularly good track record in the January transfer market, so if that can make that happen, I think it'd be a bit of relief.
I don't know if I said it often, but I think the only winter transfer market that worked for Lazio was when there was Ballardini and Lazio was nearly going to get relegated. They bought Diaz and another couple of players that work out to be really good. Floccari, I think, as well.
Yeah. Antonio Candreva was a January signing, was he not?
Yeah.
Yeah, so... Yeah, no, I mean, there have been some in the past, but...
But Candreva didn't work out in the first 6 months.
Well, it kind of did. I mean, I remember because that was the first year that I lived in Rome, and there was a big deal at the time about him having links to Roma in his past, which were more or less that I think he owned a Totti shirt when he was a kid or something like that. And so he was quite unpopular when he first came. And, when I was going to games, he was getting booed by the fans when he came off the bench and so on. And then I remember going to the game against Napoli in the league, and it was where we won 3-1.
And he scored.
Stefano Mauri scored that amazing overhead. But yeah, Candreva scored in that game and ran under the Curva Nord and ripped his shirt off and kind of showed his passion. And that was really the moment that turned him around in the eyes of the fans, and that kind of that's kicked off his good form for Lazio. So yeah, he did. I think he did in that half season. He did make a good contribution.
So you were in Rome when Lazio was struggling to get relegated?
It wasn't. No, he finished fifth that season. So, or was it fourth or fifth? Yeah, it was when the Champions League race went down to the final day, and then obviously didn't work out as is tradition. So.
Okay. Talking about the match of today, I expected much more from Berisha. I always talk really high about this player because I think he has talent. He can really change a team, but especially in the first half, he didn't play as expected. As pretty much all the team, it grew on the second half, but still, I was hoping much more from him.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I thought in the first half he started really quietly and then he was kind of growing into the game. And there were moments tonight where Lazio were putting together some really nice strings of passes and kind of cutting through the Frankfurt defence with just quick movement, quick accurate passing and movement that we haven't really seen that much of this season. And he was often at the heart of that. But yeah, he often had some moments of kind of quite bad inaccuracy and then also kind of drifted out of the game at moments as well. So yeah, he's another one. We've talked about various players, I suppose, this season who are, they need to take advantage of the opportunities they're getting. And Berisha has a really big opportunity in front of him because with Milinkovic-Savic playing as badly as he is, this is his time, really. He's the natural next stand-in to take that spot while Milinkovic is struggling for form. And he's, I think for him to stand a chance of getting in that team ahead of Milinkovic, he has to be performing better than he has tonight in order to prove that he deserves it.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a little bit like Durmisi. He was trying to do too much. But especially in the first half, I didn't like it. And then, I'm not sure, because I didn't have time to see it back, but I think he had a discussion with Luis Alberto at a certain point in the second half. I saw Luis Alberto really upset, chasing him and shouting. So I thought they had a little bit of discussion at a certain point. But yeah, I got the impression that he was trying to do too much to show his talent. And he really doesn't have to, because he's a good player and he doesn't need to do back heels or things like that to prove that he's a very good player. So, yeah, as you were saying, if he's playing like that, then Inzaghi will try to bring back Milinkovic-Savic Monday.
Yeah, I mean, for him to push himself to the front of the queue, I think he has to have a standout performance to put pressure on Inzaghi. And the way that Correa has, Correa would have still been very much viewed as a Europa League player at this stage if he hadn't taken his chances in the way that he has. And obviously he's the one who's again scored the goal tonight, so he's now right up there in being considered for a starting place every week. But Berisha's not quite got himself to that level yet. And actually none of the summer signings have, apart from Correa, safe to say. I mean, obviously with the exception of Acerbi. Okay. With the exception of Acerbi. But the guys who you looked at when they came in this summer, I'm thinking of Milan Badel and Riza Durmisi, and obviously Velam Berisha. You're thinking that in those three players, they're all kind of outsiders, but they should have enough quality to really be pushing to get into the team, and you wouldn't be too surprised if they managed to. Whereas we're yet to really see it from them. We've seen flashes, we've seen moments, but at the moment, none of them have consistently impressed enough.
Well, I would say even after the performance of tonight, again, I prefer Cataldi to Badel, or to the Badel we saw this season. I think Cataldi, it's playing better. And you can see that he's passionate when he plays for Lazio, finally. I mean, this season he played well. Is that his position? No, I think he can play better in other position, but at the moment he's the best option to replace Leiva when he's not playing. So yeah, but Badel is probably the worst signing of the summer for Lazio. Durmisi is different. He got injured when he was starting to play well, and that stopped him. He lost a month. So, and every time he plays, you see that he's a good player. He can change a match. He can improve and get better. I think he has to get used to Italian football, to Inzaghi's tactic, and so on. But you can see that Turmisi has talent and he can do better than that.
Yeah. And I always have this mantra, I suppose, of players always deserve a second season when they've made a move from a different league. So particularly, I think, with Serie A, because players always talk about it. The footballers I've interviewed and the other interviews that you see as well, they always mention the fact that it's a more tactical league. There's focus on different things than there are in other leagues, and you have to be more patient and understand the game better and adapt your game. So I do always think that players need a season of adjustment. Some adjust better than others, obviously, and you do get players who come straight in and immediately set the league on fire, but more often than not, I think you need to give players the benefit of the doubt and a bit of time. And I think we've seen that with Caicedo this season as well. I mean, he's never been given that many opportunities, but even now, when he's having his limited opportunities, he's taking advantage of them better than he did last year.
Yep, we'll see what happens. Correa, I think he played really well. I think at the moment he's probably the best signing of the summer, and he has that talent. He's so fast and skilled that he really can make the difference. And I thought in the second half he really clicked with Luis Alberto. I think Luis Alberto played really well today. I think we finally saw again the Luis Alberto of last season. He was magic again. He put a lot of times Correa in front of the keeper. Twice he was stopped by the linesman. But apart from that, I think he played really well. And as you were saying, they can play together very well. They can be really dangerous because Correa's fast and has great ball skills. And Luis Alberto has the power to put you in front of the keeper with every ball he has. So they can play very well together, and it's good to see Luis Alberto playing like that. I mean, this was probably the best thing of tonight, seeing Luis Alberto playing like that.
Yeah, and I think recently we have just seen better performances from him, and he's starting to look a bit sharper, and that has coincided with him saying that he's feeling, feeling a bit better fitness-wise as well. So hopefully it's a good signal. I mean, I'm a bit reluctant to read too much into it until we see him have an absolutely amazing game again, because so far it's been more kind of moments and various things he's done and a good impact off the bench here and there and things like that, whereas for him to really take control of a game and dictate it and provide the assists and the goals that count, then that's what we're looking for. And obviously he got the assist tonight, which was great. And yeah, I think he's finding those spaces a lot better. He's managing to kind of set up attacks a lot better than he was at the start of the season. So that's really promising. I think if we can, I don't know, in my mind, if we can find a way of getting him, Correa and Immobile on the pitch at the same time while maintaining a defensive balance, I mean, that would be a pretty dangerous outlook for opposition teams. But I don't know, it feels like it's probably a bit hard to see Inzaghi fitting that into his system unless he was to push Alberto back into the midfield, which he's tried to do in the past without great success. Well, otherwise it would be a change in formation, which he's obviously not too keen on.
He'll have to drop Milinkovic-Savic to play like that. I mean, there's no other way to do it. But yeah, it could be absolutely interesting to see. There was a surprise, Alistair, about Leva, because yesterday Inzaghi said that Leva would have been called for the match, and what Inzaghi wanted is to give him a little bit of time in the second half, maybe, to play a little bit. And then suddenly this morning, he has been dropped from the list and Parolo has been called instead. Inzaghi said that the training they had this morning wasn't positive. And so this is the reason why they dropped him. And he's still confident that he can play on Monday against Atalanta. Now, we know that he's really a key player for Lazio. And maybe one of the reasons why Lazio is performing that bad in the last matches is because Correa is not playing. But after what happened today, would you risk him against Atalanta Monday?
Probably not, no, because that's kind of what got us into this problem in the first place, was rushing him back for the Sassuolo game when there was no need, because if you remember, that was after Cataldi had impressed against Spal and in the Europa League game against Marseille, he was doing well, and then for some reason Leiva got rushed back in when he wasn't fully fit, and that's gone and made his problem worse. So no, I can't wait for him to be back. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's been a lot made of that this week, and the last couple of weeks really, is the statistics of Lazio with Lucas versus Lazio without Lucas, and that kind of demonstrating how important he is to this team in terms of the win ratio and so on. So he is definitely an important player, but I think if you've got an important player, that means you need to take as much care of them as you can. And if Inzaghi's worried that he wasn't ready to play a game tonight, and as in ready to come off the bench tonight, because that was his plan for Lucas, then there's no way that he can be thrown in from the start for 90 minutes of a really difficult away game against a really good team. So I'd like to see him on the bench against Atalanta and hopefully get some minutes. But I think for me at the moment, yeah, like you said earlier, Cataldi is the best option for me at the moment for that game.
Yeah, and especially because it's going to be really cold. It's in Bergamo at night, so not a perfect condition for someone who's coming back from a muscle injury. And Atalanta is a very speedy team, so you need to move fast, etc. So that's why I think Cataldi would be the best option for Lazio on Monday. So that's my suggestion, obviously. I'm not Simone Inzaghi, so we'll see what happens. Alistair, you mentioned it briefly when we were talking before. In this week, there have been a couple of things that I didn't like at all. Fans against Patrick and Strakosha. I read that Lazio fans judge Strakosha not fit to play in Serie A. Oh, this is because the mistake in the second goal of Sampdoria. I think Lazio fans are simply nuts saying these things about Strakosha, who, they forgot what happened last year against Juventus, so this year against Empoli in the last second. I still believe that Strakosha gave Lazio a point instead of taking them off from Lazio.
Yeah, and even more so this season. I think he's been some of his saves have literally won Lazio points this season. I mean, obviously the one against Empoli in the last minute is the one that springs to mind the most, but there have been several kind of moments where he's performed amazing saves this season that have actually stopped Lazio in games that one goal was the margin, have stopped us from conceding. So, and he's a young keeper. I mean, this is what Inzaghi underlined in his press conference as well, when people talk about the criticism of his distribution, his kicking and so on. He said, yeah, but he's a young goalkeeper, he's developing, and I'm the one who's encouraging him to try these things anyway. So Inzaghi tried to kind of deflect that criticism onto himself. But I think it's a shame, because I think these things just naturally happen as a result of bad form, is that certain players will end up becoming the kind of targets or the scapegoats of bad results, when actually that's often misguided, and the truth is simply that as a collective things aren't quite working. And I think that is the case here, is that as a collective Lazio just aren't quite ticking in the same way we were last season. And there are, don't get me wrong, certain players who aren't playing at a high enough level, but I don't think there's anyone who isn't trying, and I don't think there's anyone who's completely letting the side down and being shameless or deserves to be picked out for targeting like this.
And especially
Strakosha.
And especially this come from fans. And remember me, how many fans there were today at the stadium?
Right. Are you ready for my rant? Because this is something I was really looking forward to getting onto.
You criticize Lazio players and then you don't go to the stadium. Yeah. And please don't. Yeah, it's not a perfect time, but come on, don't complain. You're the first that gave up. They're still playing. They're still fighting, and you don't go to the stadium anymore.
Yeah. Exactly. This is the thing: is that you speak to fans, you meet fans around the city, and so on, and they like we've said before, fans like to complain. It's just the way that they are, and you complain, you criticize, blah blah blah, but you have to earn that criticism in a way. The players have every right to complain about the support. I mean, tonight was disgraceful. It was absolutely embarrassing. I've never seen anything like it. Honestly, it was. I went there, and I felt like I was about the only one. It felt like it was really cold, but that's probably because you're used to having other bodies around you, whereas I had about 1,000 empty seats around me. It was insane. There was about 2,000 or 3,000 Lazio fans there tonight.
They say there were more Scottish Lazio fan at the stadium than the Romans fan.
Well, funnily enough, there was a guy in front of me with a Scotland flag he was waving. So, yeah. So, but I mean, it really annoyed me. I mean, you've got all these excuses that people use. So you say the time, yeah, because the traffic in Rome is horrible at that time. It's
really
weekday, yeah. People trying to get back from work, yeah, blah 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 blah. The weather was bad. It was raining. It was cold. It's a match that doesn't mean anything. You know, you name it. There are all these excuses out there that people will use, but come on. 3,000 fans for a European game. It's embarrassing. And what made it even more embarrassing was how well numbered the away support was. I mean, that's the biggest away support I think I've ever seen for a Lazio game. There was about 8,000 of them, and that was only because their numbers were limited. They wanted to bring something like 15,000, but they couldn't because Lazio didn't let them take that many tickets. But it's just shocking. I mean, how do you expect this club to develop these players to play with any passion if nobody's going to bother to turn up and watch them? I mean, it really. I know I've spoken about this before, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it really annoys me.
Yeah, and again, it cannot be possible that every time there is an excuse to not go to the matches. Every time. And then they contest. They say, Patrick, he doesn't deserve to play with his shirt, blah, blah, blah. You start going to the stadium, start supporting the team, and then you can talk. And then you can criticize players. But you have to give them support, not like that. And the other bad thing of the match was what happened with the German fans. I mean, the TV didn't show it, but they said that they throw flares in the stand. A couple tried to invade the pitch. The police had to stop them, so it wasn't really good.
Yeah, so I mean, I can say what I saw from the stands, but obviously it's from a distance, so I can't say that everything I'll report is 100% accurate because obviously you can't tell what's going on all the time. But the thing that seemed to kick it all off was that the German fans were throwing flares around throughout the game, but then they launched one into the Tribuna Tevere where the Lazio fans were, and it landed very close to, if not in, a group of Lazio fans who are obviously not too happy about that, and they all started running off in a group towards the edge of the stand where the Curva Sud is and kind of shouting insults at them. It appeared to me like a couple of Lazio fans had got over the barrier to run under the Curva and shout insults at them, but I'm not 100% sure about that. At the time, there was basically no security to stop them from doing that if they wanted to. But this was all happening at exactly the moment that Lazio scored their goal, so everyone got a bit distracted by that, obviously, at the time. And then, there were people down on the running track anyway, no matter, I don't know if they were Lazio fans, Frankfurt fans, but there were people down there, and police were coming out, pulling people underneath the stand, taking them off the pitch, and riot police were coming out. The German fans started throwing flashbangs and flares at the riot police. And then all of a sudden there was a wall of about, hundreds of stewards piled out and formed this kind of yellow wall in front of the Curva Sud. And I don't know why it wasn't there in the first place, because it took this trouble for that to happen anyway. They were obviously on standby ready to go, but they needed some sort of trouble to actually deploy them. But yeah, I mean, you'll notice it if you watch the replay of the second Frankfurt goal, is that when he goes behind the goal to celebrate, there are suddenly all these stewards there who weren't there during their first goal. So, or maybe were by then, I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, they were there already.
Yeah, but that all kind of kicked off from this flare being launched from the German fans into the Lazio stand. And obviously, it's terrible behaviour anyway, but it's even more shocking to a fan base like Lazio, I think, because of the history of what the dangers that presents.
Yeah, it was shocking. Now we're gonna see what's gonna happen with UEFA, if they're gonna do something. Obviously, it's amazing how they were able to bring the flare inside the stadium, and not one.
So many.
Yeah, it's simply a mystery how this happened.
Yeah, and I had a policeman was basically grabbing my crotch and feeling me up to make sure I had nothing on me going into the game. So they were being quite thorough on the Lazio end. So I don't know what was happening at the other end if they didn't manage to.
And they have been disordered already last night, so they should have been concerned about the match, which they weren't, surprisingly.
Yeah, I've been a bit disappointed by that. Obviously, for some reason, this is kicked off into being a bit of a flashpoint, a Lazio-Frankfurt fixture, which doesn't appear to be a fixture that needs to be this kind of, that we had enough trouble with the Marseille game already, and then for some reason Frankfurt have taken it upon themselves to cause this much trouble. And like you say, last night they were marching around town and throwing bottles and trashing pubs, and then today fighting with police at Piazzale Flaminio. And I just don't. I mean, I understand they're excited about being in a European competition again. They've not had much of that in their recent history, but come on, I mean, have some respect and do things properly. It's. Yeah,
let's remember that Marseille lost at home against Apollon tonight. It's incredible, 3-1. This group of Marseille is simply embarrassing. I don't know what happened. I'm obviously against Garcia and Strootman. I cannot say that I'm happy. I'm not happy about that, but it's still strange.
Are you sure you're not happy about that?
A little bit.
Yeah, I know it's not been the group that we expected, has it? It's been it's turned out to be a very, very different group from what we would have expected actually going into it. And credit, I think we have to say credit to Frankfurt, because to have won every single game in a group this difficult is pretty impressive. And I think we've done what we needed to. We've got through fairly easily in the end, not maybe as emphatically as we might have liked, but to get through with 2 games to spare and use a rotated team in each of those games in a group that difficult, I think is pretty much what we would have taken that going into it anyway.
Absolutely. I was hoping honestly to arrive first. I thought it was achievable, but a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of strange things, and we didn't make it. But still, second is still good. Going to the question, Patrick Bowman. Personally, I don't really care about this game. There was nothing at stake. But do you think the result has any impact on the squad moral of Psyche one or the other way? I don't think, Patrick, especially because I thought that the team played well. And so this is the most important. I think players like Cataldi would be happy about their performance. Luis Alberto, surely I think this will help him improve his performance. So I don't think this defeat will impact Lazio performance in the coming weeks. Alistair?
Well, what I would say is I don't necessarily think that this defeat will really change an awful lot, but I think that winning this game might have changed a lot. if that makes sense.
No,
As
I
in,
totally agree.
Going, to have come away with a win and a good performance would have proved to this team that they're capable of doing that. And given that the margins have been quite small in Lazio's last 3 league games, the margin between drawing and winning games has been pretty small, and they've been unlucky not to take 3 points in any of those matches. And maybe they're starting to lose a little bit of belief that things aren't going to go their way. So I think to have won this game would have restored some confidence, and this team, in my mind, is in need of confidence at the moment. But as it stands, I don't think we've really learned much. I think we're pretty much where we were before the game started.
Christopher Thomas, I said after the Milan draw I was really struggling to stay positive with the team. I was quoted on the podcast and some felt I was being overly negative. I think it was you, Alistair. We drew with Chievo and Sampdoria and lost to Apollon and Frankfurt. Conceded 7 and scored 4 in that time. I'm still being negative? Alistair, do you want to reply?
It's because I'm always trying to be a ray of positivity here. I certainly think that things have changed a bit since the Milan draw. Don't get me wrong. I mean, after that draw, I think I was trying to make the point that we were still in a good position ahead of our December fixtures. We were in a stronger position than Milan were, even though we hadn't managed to get the result we wanted. So I think since then a lot has changed, because to get the draws with Chievo and Sampdoria, particularly Chievo, has been very disappointing, because those are 2 very winnable games. And if we had won them, we would have been ahead of Inter by now. Or level with Inter. That is a big disappointment. I've already said tonight we are conceding too many goals. That's without doubt, and I think that's all it comes down to at the moment with Lazio's form. It sounds remarkably simple, but it's not simple to fix. Is that we're conceding goals too easily, and we're finding it too difficult to score them, and that is a big problem. Not hiding away from that whatsoever. So, no, I don't think it is negative at this point to complain about these things. But I stand by the fact that after the Milan draw, I thought that we had a very positive outlook ahead of us, because given the fixtures we had, I thought we could have turned it around.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is the fact that Lazio had a very positive fixture that could really change the season, and instead it came. The Lazio collect a series of very poor results that now put Lazio in a worse position than before. It's true we lost Leva, and maybe this is telling you how Leva is important for the team. But as well, we made so many mistakes in defense. And again, we talked about switching to a 4-man defense, etc., changing players. We saw that their single mistake, player's mistake, it's not the problem of how many defenders you have on the pitch. It's the mistake that the team makes. And this has cost a lot to Lazio. And I hope they improve, they learn from the mistakes. And it's getting negative, because if you start one draw against Milan, okay, but then all the others, Chievo, Sampdoria, they're starting to affecting the team. And to add this, Milinkovic-Savic didn't play that well, Ciro Immobile struggled, and so on. So that's why it's really important to see Luis Alberto play so well today, because this could be, changing a little bit Lazio performance in the coming weeks.
My question for you now is, I don't know if we've got all of them through yet, actually, but who would you say we should be hoping to draw and hoping to avoid in the last 32 draw on Monday?
I don't know who have qualified.
Well, so at the moment, because I think we still need to wait for the final ones to come through, but at the moment we've got Valencia, Benfica, Villarreal, Genk, Seville, Dinamo Kiev, Chelsea, Salzburg, Zenit, Dinamo Zagreb and Arsenal. but there'll be a few more from the later results.
Well, without thinking too much, I would say Genk, Dinamo Zagreb would be a couple of good one.
Yeah. Dynamo Kiev last season was easy enough.
Yeah. What was the other one? I think Benfica is not as good anymore as before, but I could be wrong. I didn't see them that much. Obviously, I would try to avoid Chelsea. I think Chelsea is one of the favorite for winning the cup this season.
Here's the real question. Would you like to or hate to draw Salzburg?
No, I think it would be nice to have a revenge with them.
Yeah.
I think they're not the same team of last season. They're struggling a little bit, so it would be interesting to play them again.
It could be a complete disaster, though.
Well, as usual, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I don't know, just looking at the groups now from the games that are about to finish, and Salzburg have actually won every single game in the group stage, like Frankfurt. So
and Milan is pretty much out, surprisingly.
Oh, are they? I haven't even seen that yet.
They're losing 3-1, and
yeah,
it's
there we are. Yeah. So yeah, the other ones, I suppose, by the looks of things, will be Real Betis, Arsenal. Yeah.
Well, even Malmo would be good, but I don't think we're gonna get it right. They arrive second.
Leverkusen. Yeah, looking at it, Genk seem to be the best draw, don't they? Genk or Dynamo Kiev, perhaps, but it's not going to be an easy draw. But by the one benefit we got from the Champions League results the other night was that we can't draw Inter or Napoli, so that automatically takes two of the possible Champions League teams out of the equation, because you're not allowed to draw a team from the same league. So, the Champions League third place teams can often be the real bogey teams, the real ones to avoid. So that is at least one potential benefit.
Well, you just keep two, not all the others.
Yeah, I know, but instead of having whatever it is, 4 potential ones to draw, you've now got only 2, because it's only 4 who go into each pot. So you've got the 4 best and the 4 worst third place teams in either pot. So
Patrick Bowman said, "No, I don't want Malmo."
I don't know anything about Malmo, to be honest,
but they arrived second, so they have no chance to.
Oh, okay.
But we'll see.
Maybe I feel like this is maybe something we should have brought up once the groups were actually finished.
yeah, and this is
live blog on it.
And this is why I prefer to arrive first in the group. I know it was difficult after losing against Frankfurt away, but at least you have the first match that should be easy. Now you don't know; it can be really tough. And again, then what happens? Do you play the starting 11 or do you rotate like you're doing in the group phase? Even if it's a tough match.
I think it all depends on the context, really, doesn't it? I mean, it depends on where we are at that time of the season, what the league games are looking like, and what the injury situation is and everything like that. I think it's too soon at this point to be able to say for sure you go all in or you don't, because I think that there's enough depth in the team to have a competitive team while still resting some players, but it's clear by this point that there's not enough depth for the B team to compete to that good a level to hope to go really far in the competition with just our B team. So, yeah, I think it will get to a certain stage where Inzaghi's going to have some tough questions to ask and a bit of a balancing act to make. And he did a pretty good job of that last season, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he should have learned some lessons as well from that.
Yep. And again, I think this year there is a better depth in the squad. We talk about Berisha, Durmisi, etc. So he has more players to pick. As we said often, the problem is the right wing. but we're gonna see there's January in between, so maybe Lazio can sign some players and fit those gap. Alistair, I think we can wrap it up here. I don't know if you have some stats or something more to add. Otherwise, we can wrap it up here and talk again next week after Atalanta-Lazio.
Yep, that sounds good. I don't think I've got anything else to add. You'll be sad to hear.
Yeah, I was waiting for your stat, honestly, but okay. Again, everybody, thanks for your support. Thanks for listening to Lazio Lounge. And remember, if you like the show, please share it with your friends, and please rate and review the podcast on iTunes if you still didn't do it. And if you want to support, you can become membership on Patreon, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge, and you will able to see our weekly video as well. So thank you for your support, and we're going to talk Monday after Lazio Atalanta. Thank you very much, Alistair. Have a good night.
Cheers.